At Dasra Philanthropy Week 2025, a whole day was devoted to exploring how data, technology, and artificial intelligence are driving transformative change across India. Held in Bengaluru, this event brought together a wide range of organizations from across the tech and the social sectors. The goal was to inspire discussion, share expert perspectives, and real-world applications that highlight how these powerful tools can accelerate progress, enhance decision-making, and create scalable, sustainable impact. In this episode, we offer you a glimpse of some of these conversations.
Hi, I'm Sarayu Natarajan. I'm one of the founders of Aapti Institute.
Aapti Institute works at the intersection between technology and society to enhance societal impact, justice, and equity. They conduct research, develop solutions, and embed them in policy and within organizations to achieve impact at scale. Sarayu Natarajan was on a panel called Gender Inclusive Data Technologies, the Need for a Paradigm Shift. We asked Sarayu to tell us a little bit about her work and how it intersects with AI. She then talks us through the questions raised on the panel and her views on the opportunities and challenges raised by AI.
We've been working on AI quite extensively right since we started, which was in 2018. We work all across the AI value chain, I dare say. So we work on questions of data, questions of representativeness and bias in data, as well as the other side of data set generation, which is the labor question. So we have one of the earliest pieces on data annotation and labeling out in India. And so this is one of the pieces that looks at the annotation industry and questions of labor more deeply. We also work in thinking a little bit about questions of safety, risk, responsibility in model development. So again, a lot of our work looks at the ways in which models are made. Also questions of responsibility and participation on the part of developers that make models. So some of our work is about downstreaming these broader conceptions of responsibility. And then we also work on at the application layer in terms of how people use AI. So both thinking about methods of participation in the making of AI, but also concerns around the ways in which AI are used, such as making fake synthetic content, harmful content, misinfo, disinfo. So some of the downstream consequences of AI are also things that we pay attention to. I think our philosophy around AI has been to emphasize the question of participativeness, thinking about participativeness at all levels of the AI value chain. And we think that participativeness is the resistance to some of the challenges that AI presents to society. I think the panel delved into multiple aspects of gender inclusivity. I think the first was sort of thinking a little bit more deeply about why we are asking these questions about inclusivity in the first place, some of why we've landed in this situation, so to speak. We also talked a little bit about how biases, gender biases emanate in different parts of the AI value chain and how they play out downstream, what kind of mitigation mechanisms need to exist. We also talked a little bit about some of the positive sides or the opportunities from AI, particularly around skilling, as well as opportunities for social sector organizations to make more effective AI, and then also the ways in which to solve inclusivity. And I think, I dare say that that's a sort of big challenge to take on. But I think the panel sort of delved into what different measures or actions need to coexist in order to sort of build towards more inclusive representative systems. It's hard to walk away from the opportunities AI provides, particularly in solving certain thorny problems that particularly impact organizations deal with on a daily basis. It also has, it's broadly framed as productivity, but what it does is unlock capacity to do other things or, to have more agency in the way you do your work. And I think all of that, the panel very strongly acknowledged as being potential that AI has. I think the cautions also came from, I guess, the experiences the different representatives on the panel had in their interaction with AI. particularly its inability or the struggles of including gender more meaningfully in data set creation and curation, for example, are points that panelists and speakers brought up. And I think that, again, rounding out, I would say cautiously optimistic. And I think that the panel landed in a good place in terms of saying, hey, this is all that AI can do for you, but also pay attention to where you need to be as civil sector organizations, points of resistance to some of the worst impetuses of AI. The mood, much like the tone of the panel, is cautiously optimistic. I think there is a very vibrant community of technologists, particularly the open source panel had, three of them on the dais, very strongly discussing the ways in which open source technology was a potential sort of bulwark against some of the excesses of AI. And that was an interesting sort of discussion to have. I think there is also, and it's quite apparent from the room, that there is a community of social scientists, researchers, people who are in social enterprises, thinking about some of the complications around AI. I think, and I know from some of our work at Aapti that even lawyers are quite invested in thinking about these questions of guardrails and regulations of AI. So my takeaway, or what I think is the most important thing that I hope survives after this week of discussion, is actually that the communities need to talk to each other. It is not that there isn't a concern around these questions in each of these communities. I think they're articulated in very, very different ways. But for there to be actual progress in the way AI is shaped, it's critical to come together for this sort of flow of ideas between people who have a better sense of what ought to be done or the guardrails in a certain way, as well as the people who have a better sense of what can be done from the technological perspective. So I think those conversations are very necessary. I think there's a few challenges, and I find it hard to think about it in any sort of ordinal sense. I think one for me is the concern around fail-safes, particularly in social sector applications, and even more so in government applications. Thinking about the alternatives if AI cannot be used for any reason, or AI fails to produce just outcomes, which is some of the obligation, I would say, of government for sure, and to a large extent civil society or not-for-profit or social impact organizations. I think paying attention to fail-safes is critical. I think also in India, just given the sheer diversity, paying attention to multiple intersectionalities of sort of, around identity also becomes both a layer of complication as well as an opportunity. But again, one of the concerns around thinking about responsible AI, I think these are all sort of problems to my mind, or not problems as much as challenges that coexist with each other, but one is not more important than the other. The overall thing though about India is, given that there is a space, there's such a rich, vibrant discussion around these questions, we definitely live in a time where India can actually show the way in building some of these sort of more responsible practices around making AI, or more responsible AI itself.
Next up is Vijay Sai Pratap from Graamvani.
I'm Vijay Sai Pratap, representing Graamvani.
Graamvani supports communities to use technologies and share information that can equip them to build positive change in their lives.
Graamvani has been operating at the intersection of communities, technology and development, building appropriate technology tools and, more importantly, community-led processes to ensure that technology can create spaces for contextual conversations for communities and helping them build a very shared understanding of the issues, helping them collectivize around local topics, and also, more importantly, work towards finding local and contextual solutions.
They do so by building ground-up participatory media platforms that communities can access and use, thereby amplifying those voices that are often unheard and underrepresented, so that communities can hear, share, and build together.
While we call these digital community commons as conversation spaces, what we've also been focusing on is how do you build the capacity of communities to leverage these technology tools? So I think that's fundamentally what we've been operating at, and we've worked across the spectrum in terms of technology for communities in the space of health, education, agriculture, social protection, governance, and more recently we've been working at the intersection of climate, natural resource management, also amplifying community voices, especially in the situation where when climate change has been impacting the most marginalized, their voices unfortunately don't seem to be represented well enough in the broader policy narrative, nor in terms of solutions that incorporate or take into consideration the indigenous knowledge of these communities. And the more fundamental thesis has been around ensuring that technology does not lead to more exclusion, right? And how do you ensure that technology, which ideally has to empower people, does not become another layer of disempowerment? I think AI does not happen to be a new, fun tool that gets integrated into our solutions because we need to. I think it's more importantly about how we as an ecosystem are able to adapt ourselves to the changing spectrum of technology, right? And AI happens to be the new thing in town, right? And the more important aspect is how do you ensure that despite these new technology developments, you keep the communities at the focus of your work, right? Now, even before the current excitement around AI, Graamvani has been generating a lot of valuable insights from community voices, community conversations that help us generate some very valuable data sets, question and answer data sets, for example, on topics like sexuality and reproductive health, very contextual conversations around maternal health, on workforce and labor rights. What we've been able to do is that we've leveraged, for example, AI and ML to sort of improve content discoverability. But what we are trying to do now is how do you adapt to these new changes that are happening in terms of language models, right? How do you ensure some of these more contextual, community-led conversations and data sets are becoming part of the broader language models or the knowledge models? Because otherwise it can lead to a situation where most of the knowledge data sets or knowledge bases that are being used are very top-down, right? And hence, information that's being thrown out to communities or being provided through these AI tools or channels will have a lot of conventional issues that we've all known about in terms of bias and other forms of challenges that we already know of, right? I think it's more about finding more specific use cases in the context of communities and their needs in very critical areas like climate resilience, natural resource management, and ecological sustainability as well.
Vijay was on a panel that discussed the power of open source and collaborative technology for social change. Here, he talks about how contextual, community-based knowledge should get incorporated into large models. He also talks about the importance of collaborative development in the context of tech and its applications for the social sector.
A couple of things, right? For example, in our own session or panel, there was this conversation around open source tech and its impact or role in social change or in the social sector. I think while we all acknowledge the importance of open source technologies, I think a broader consensus that was obviously building within our panel was that we have to choose technology carefully, right? Technology is only an enabler at the end of the day, right? I think we should not fall into the trap of technology solutionism. It's more importantly about understanding the why of technology, who are we building it for, what are we building, and how are we implementing them, right? I think communities have to be who we are working out, targeting with these solutions. They have to be part of this entire process, and also importantly, having the humility to understand that any of these solutions will need to undergo change, right, based on the feedback that we're receiving from communities. I think that's the broader consensus, that let's not fall into the trap of technology solutionism. Let's work with communities, right? And also in terms of trying to build the capacity of organizations or even communities to leverage these technology solutions or capabilities that we are collectively working towards. But even in terms of the broader conversations that across other panels as well, like for example, the importance of gender, their role of ensuring more participation and representation of women in not just developing tech, but also in terms of At the community level as well, that was an important topic. And also one other critical point that came up was building with the public, right? So I think in terms of building solutions for and with the public, right? I think that's again an important point that definitely came up and is critical when we all are working in this sort of a space. I think the underlying theme also is also about collaboration, right? I think it came up even in terms of technology as well, in terms of collaborative development, right? Where ensuring that there's no redundancy, there's ensuring that you're not reinventing the wheel, right? Trying to reuse solutions that are already out there, many of them in the market, right? And also building, co-creating with communities as well, right? I think that's probably the underlying theme I would feel needs to be emphasized on, which is about co-creation and collaborative development.
Finally, we have Vaibhav Chugh from CEEW.
So my name is Vaibhav Chugh. I lead the Tech and AI vertical for CEEW, that is the Council for Energy, Environment and Water. We are a policy research think tank, basically working across different domains, ranging from water, air, power, renewable energy, climate finance, to name a few. It's based out of New Delhi.
Vaibhav was a panelist on collaborating for impact, tech and AI innovations for community resilience in India. Vaibhav talks us through their work on climate change, building in public, and building for interoperability. He also talks to us about the importance of addressing bias.
So the panel was about unlocking, using tech and AI to unlock community resilience in the impending climate change scenario. So we spoke about how tech and AI innovations can help in building community resilience. We spoke about issues around using tech and AI and how social sector organizations can collaborate in building solutions using tech and AI. So these are the broad themes that we discussed on. Going to specific examples, etc. So there was Digital Greens, which are working closely with farmers, and they're building a chatbot helping farmers to, based on weather forecast and other external variables, take decisions on the field in real time. What crops to grow, what chemicals to use, what pesticides, watering, etc. Those decisions, and how to also market. Some examples from the work I do: we are working in areas of climate resilience. Basically, we are working with municipalities, urban local bodies to create their heat action plans. How we're leveraging tech and AI, we are trying to use geospatial data to understand at a more granular level, at the community level, household level, what are the most vulnerable households and what areas are facing the risk of extreme heat. What are the short-term and long-term solutions to it? Short-term can be as simple as creating infrastructure at hospitals, take care of heat stroke, which is not totally penetrated right now, to different departments like the water supply department, etc., to take actions when there is a heat stroke. Long-term things like how can we identify areas which can be more greener. You understand, because of urban heat island effects, the whole concretization, which absorbs a lot of heat. So a lot of workers during daytime are exposed to this heat, and during nighttime, because of temporary structures, they are not able to, the homes are not able to get cooled. So we used to see days above 40 degrees Celsius 30 days in a year, but that has increased to 60, 65 now because of increasing heat. And so we try to analyze all this data, geospatial data, etc. We are leveraging a lot of data sets by big tech like Google on open buildings, where we release data about the building footprints, the building heights, and they've used very sophisticated machine learning AI tools to provide this data. And this helps for organizations, us, to leverage it to build solutions for policymakers, administrators, and communities, leveraging that data. I'm being a tech creator myself. Right now, when we are doing these efforts of building technology or using AI, a lot of duplication of efforts happen. That's one thing. Second is, a lot of products get built, but they're never adopted or used one of the biggest learning as a group we came up with is that about building in public, which is that once you have an idea or a thought to solve a major social issue or some impact which you can solve by tech and AI. So there are two processes of development. One is that you do it in your silo over a year and then you release the best version possible. But what even the startups and a lot of big tech companies are adopting now is building in public. That is, as soon as you have an idea, you build a prototype, give it to the users to play with, take feedback, iterate and improve on it. And that is what a thinking our social sector ecosystem should perhaps imbibe and learn to build in public. What it does, advantages is basically as soon as you give it to users, they start giving you feedback. And what you would do as in a silo or in a limited group, when you're doing it in a public, you are getting much more ideas, much more feedback, ideas, improvements, so that when finally that thing takes some shape, you see adoption. And unlike a car or a product, technology products are always a work in progress. You are chasing to solve a problem, not chasing to build a product. Like the end goal is to solve the problem, which will keep happening. Problems will keep changing. User requirements will keep expanding. So I loved in the panel, one of the things that happened that we should try to solve one problem very well, and then the users themselves will come to tell you about other problems. Second is, as a technologist, I can see that we can take certain decisions when we are building about the architecture, what we are building. So for example, so if we are working on certain area where we have collected data and we want to put it out there on a dashboard or a tool, instead of building a monolith, a great architecture would be that you build a separate front end, back end, so that if the same data can solve other problem, other organization can also build a front end tool for their target users using the same data. They can share APIs, etc. to exchange, make all this interoperable. And people can also build for different regions, different types of solutions, getting inspired from that. And still, all these applications can talk to each other. I think a couple of points discussed today was about bias in data. As I understand, like a lot of these models are imitation, where their learning is through, there are two ways to learning. Basically, one is imitation learning and one other is try and error based learning. So the initial versions of the models were more imitation based learning, where they mimicked the patterns they see in data. Some examples were used in today's discussions were about when we refer to a doctor, it's like a more male annotation, and a nurse is a female, which is not how the actual world is. So there were discussions around how can we make data more gender neutral. This is not only about gender, but different social structures, etc. How can we make it more? So the inputs that are going into this process, model building process, they are free of bias. So the outputs that you see would also reflect the same. So a lot of foundational models will become the base for a lot of advanced models, etc. So it's important to keep those things earlier in check, put those policies in place so that as we go towards a world with more AI agents, which are taking decisions, not only providing information, we need bias-free outputs.
For more information on No Cost Extension or Dasra Philanthropy Week, go to dasra.org.